Hello and welcome to today's webinar on basically navigating results with ADHD. So we've got results day coming up on Thursday for students that did A-levels to see whether they get into the university course that they're striving for. So it's quite a day coming up for students, particularly with ADHD. So I'm Stephanie, founder of the ADHD Advocate, and I've got Eleni Spiridis.
Hello.
You can introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm a coach based here in New York, but having lived in the UK for many years. And I believe that what we're going to cover today is applicable for students everywhere. So it's really looking at this post-high school process through an ADHD lens.
Yeah, and we've got Seb as well. Seb, would you like to introduce yourself today?
Yeah, I'm Seb. I'm a postgrad student now who's taken quite a while to get to this point because I was diagnosed really late with ADHD, and now I'm sort of trying to help people get through the process because it's not easy.
Yeah, it's certainly not, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We very much believe here at the ADHD Advocate, it's really important that we name it to tame it and be able to look through the ADHD lens. So, whether you're diagnosed with ADHD or suspect you have ADHD, it's really going to help you if you understand the kind of challenges that come with it, the kind of what we tell ourselves, the narrative that's going to be running for you as a result of your ADHD, so that we can, proactively manage it and make sure that it doesn't get in the way of us being able to do the things that are in our best interests, and also do the things that are in integrity with who we really are. So today's webinar, we're going to be covering the challenges, helping you look through the ADHD lens. We're going to be talking about the importance of perspective, which is something ADHDers don't often have and we lose very easily. Seb is going to discuss his experience of results day. And for him, what helped him get through it. He's going to speak about the impact of institutionalization. Then we're going to talk a bit about the strengths of ADHD before Seb will then go into a bit of detail around clearing, which you may find yourself in if you don't get, I think, the marks that you need to get in for the university of your choice. So over to you, Eleni. Let's get you started first in terms of the challenges of ADHD specifically for students at this time.
Yes.
What do they need to be aware of?
Yeah, a lot of students that we have seen in coaching tend to really struggle with tasks related to executive function skills and challenges. So that's a big piece of it. But for our purposes today, I would say RSD, which you'll hear us refer to a lot, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, can really be a difficult challenge to sort of acknowledge and sort of name it to tame it, as Stephanie said. So our response to something that's negative that comes our way can really be drastically altered with ADHD and sort of blown out of proportion. And that's what RSD can really be a difficult thing if you're unfamiliar with it. I would say overwhelm and decision making are also big challenges that our students face. So not only when they're getting through high school and preparing for their exams, their GCSEs, their A-levels, but certainly now as they're faced with university where maybe the same supports aren't in place. And with ADHDers, we need to be interested in something that is of authentic interest to ourselves. And this too, which I'm sure Seb will touch on, is a huge consideration as we begin to sort of contemplate next steps, whether or not they include university or beyond, certainly something that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, so at this point, I think it might be a good idea for Seb, perhaps, in terms of those specific challenges. I mean, at the time, did you know you had ADHD when you found out your results?
No. So as I was in my final 2 years of school, I just knew that something wasn't right and that I wasn't sort of doing what I thought I could do in my head. And that's like the start of that sort of RSD approach towards results day, because you have this constant sort of barrage of thoughts from yourself and comments from other people that you're not achieving what you should be able to achieve, because when you talk to someone you come across differently to what you're achieving academically, and so it sort of reaches that point on results day where you might not be going where you thought you were going to go, and you have doors closed on you, and you have sort of you're rejected from universities. It's a major thing. You feel like a failure in yourself, and it's battling that and getting over that and being able to make sensible decisions for your own future, rather than then getting led by other people, teachers who want you to go to good universities who want your money for tuition fees, and friends and influencers who want you to go and have fun with them for 3 years. And so it's trying to establish your own sort of journey, and that's incredibly hard to do when you're dealing with the pain of 2 years of hard studying. A levels are hard, and not knowing what's the future holds, because when you've opened your results, they're not what you hope they would be potentially. And so it's a really tough one to get through.
Yeah, no, it's that, and ADHD is, again, like we said, that perspective. It's not easily gained for us, and certainly not maintained either. And because ADHDs have this negativity bias and catastrophization tendencies, yeah, results day can be absolutely crippling, I guess. And as Seb was saying, if you're not clear on your own agenda, if you're not clear on what it is you really want to do, because of RSD, ADHDs, we also tend to be people pleasers, like what Seb said. You already feel probably like a disappointment, and that you've disappointed your family, if you didn't get those results. So now that RSD, that people pleasing, will kick in, and you will kind of feel that pressure to please and do the thing that your parents think that this is a good idea. You want to please them because you felt you've disappointed them. So you say yes, but perhaps that isn't the thing that you want to do. Perhaps that's a thing that actually you're not going to be good at either. And so it may mean that you, again, will kind of keep on that path, at least, of not feeling as if you're succeeding. So we want to help you avoid that. Yeah. Any more thoughts? So, Seb, in terms of, we talk a lot about staying in your own lane in coaching, because, again, ADHDers, because they don't often have their own agenda, and the people pleasing, they do tend to kind of go with the popular opinion, to keep the peace, and yeah, how did you what was your experience of that, particularly for you personally, when you kind of had to go into clearing and you didn't get the results you wanted?
Yeah, so I got pushed very much down going like a politics route, because it was the sort of result that was the highest. It wasn't a high result, but it was my result that's highest at A levels, and everyone around me was like, that's an employable degree, you can go out and you'll be doing better than if you were doing something like history, which is what I ended up doing. And so I went and did a foundation year, and then moved and went and started a politics degree. And within a year, I dropped out of uni for a year, because I just couldn't see a way through like the mire of doing something which I wasn't interested in. And all of this adds to this sense of failure that you've got at results day, potentially, that you keep pushing because you've got resilience. If you've got A levels with ADHD, you have resilience. And so you keep pushing, but you keep failing because you're not interested in it. You've done the wrong thing. You've maybe gone to the wrong place. That's another thing that I did. I did a foundation year at one uni, and then let myself get pulled by my family back towards my home. And I went to a city which wasn't right for me at all, because it wasn't my decision to come. I sort of, you become a yes person to an extent sometimes when you're dealing with failure, and someone says, well, I think it would be good for you, and you go, yes, I think it would be brilliant. And you have to make sure that you're doing what you want to do, where you want to do it. And actually, if you don't know what you want to do, that's completely fine, that's completely acceptable. But it's about allowing you yourself like the space, the time to then come to that realization yourself. And often at results day, often sort of after school, people say, well, if you don't go to university now, you're never going to do it. Because what they're quite scared of is you finding something better to do, and they really want you to go to university. So I think you have to be careful. If someone's saying to you, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it, you have to think, well, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there's an opportunity to find something. And the idea I ended up taking a year just to think. And I did go to university after that year, but I needed that year to sort of consider, and I worked in a warehouse for a year, and I thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life. But it's about separating yourself from everyone else's wishes, desires, wants, ambitions, goals, even if they're from the best place, they you know, they want these things for you. You have to know that it's what you want and where you want to be.
You said
That's such
something really
great advice.
hugely important, I think, Seb, and for the benefit of all students, to separate an event or something from the individual. So, you know, these universities or these employers, maybe, you know, down the road, are maybe searching for something very specific. And if that specific thing is not you or your skill set, we ADHDers can sometimes have a hard time separating that. So they maybe did not, maybe you weren't suited as what they were looking for, but that is not a personal sort of slight on your you as an individual. And that is a very subtle distinction, but a huge one for students with ADHD.
Yeah, massive. I think that's something. It's something that I didn't have the time to develop when I was younger, and I'm learning now. And it's something. It's the key thing to take away, that, you know, when someone says no, they're not saying no to you as a person. They're saying no to what you've done, and what you've done is determined by, you know, your past, your experiences, the fact that you've got ADHD and you're in an education system which doesn't support you very well. And so, yeah, it's separating yourself from what you've done. And I promise you, eventually you'll do something that you're ridiculously proud of. And if no one else is, it doesn't matter, because as long as you're proud of it, then that's life. It's good.
But can you just tell us a bit more about sort of how you took that time away in that year of working, and when you were ready to move forward and go to university, sort of how did it work out for you?
Yeah, so I used clearing in a bizarre way because my results weren't good enough to use clearing at first. So I took that year away, and then I used clearing the next year when I still only had 2 A levels. And I went into clearing, and sort of, it was nice because it wasn't on results day. I didn't have to go like, you know, please take me, please take me. You know, I really want to go to uni. I could sort of look from a distance and say, well, I think they're likely to take me. I think they're likely to take me, and come at it from my own perspective. And I was also having great fun earning money and like spending money and being 18 and like having fun, not being a student, but living like a student. It was, you know, it was very beneficial for me to learn how to live in the real world, because often like money and stuff is something that ADHD students really, really struggle with.
Actually, this is a really good point, Seb, what you're saying. By taking that time out and having to kind of start becoming more independent, you know, in terms of, okay, you were saying the other day with the institutionalization, how, you know, you said something about like being a prisoner, being let out, you know, you don't have the support of school anymore, you know, going through the most traumatic experience you have to dust yourself off and go into something. Yeah.
And like it's the same, because if you do bad, like I left with 2 A levels. 2 A levels doesn't get into university. You know, even with my degree now, I can't get a lot of grad schemes because I don't have the UCAS points. I couldn't become an army officer because I don't have the UCAS points. So there's like a lot of limitations there. And so you leave and you look at what's open to you, and there's not a lot open to you. So you've been in education for, you know, essentially 18 years, and you leave, and there's no support, there's no pastoral care, there's no one to help you deal with the fact that, you know, you're collapsing, your world's collapsing a little bit, and you just have to deal with it yourself. And that can be really hard. But it can also happen if you just go straight into university as well, because it's the same. Like, you go and you live in a first year accommodation for the first month, and that support's there, but it's hard to find, and you're independent. And that's an important thing to register, is that you might have to take time to work out how to live in the world when the world isn't necessarily catered towards people who jump the gun and are impulsive. And, you know, it's definitely possible, but all these things, it's about dealing with results day in the best way possible so you can understand who you are in the world. Because that institutionalization of school and then into university, often people don't have to make that realization until they're 21, 22. And that's much harder to then work those things out at that age.
Yeah, it's quite common. Like, my experience, it was a while ago now, but definitely in my experience, I originally wanted to get into, I think, medicine because it was the top mark. And, my father's Asian, right? Very high expectations. My brother, I think, was doing medicine. And I just missed out on the marks for medicine. And I didn't have a backup plan. So what I did, very typical ADHD, forgetful fairy type fashion, well, what's the next highest mark? Law. Never, ever, even before that results, I had not considered law. I hadn't thought about, that at all, but it was the next best mark. So I just did it. And it literally, in terms of institutionalization, it's funny you talk about it now, but back then I was oblivious. I had no idea. I didn't actually kind of stop and think about anything. I just tended to do. And then this happened. And then I go here, then I go there. And then, that's how I lived my life all the way up until I got diagnosed with ADHD at age 38. Before that, it was very much, I was on autopilot. I'm not one of those kind of thinking around the corners. ADHD is very much the insight in mind. Now this, then that, whatever's in front of me. And yeah, I mean, look, I was lucky. Law was a good thing to do. It wasn't wasted. And I don't believe that anything's wasted. No matter what you do, it'll always, be of benefit down the line, definitely. And, for instance, the advocacy. It's allowed me to be able to help ADHDers on the in terms of the law, which I wouldn't have been able to do without it. But then I also now have got the benefit. The psychiatry that interested me was more around the psychology, the kind of ADHD coaching thing, which I am now doing as well. So, it can happen that way. But for me, I think I very much got lucky. But, not all of us get it, that doesn't hapen. There's definitely other areas of my life where I was not so lucky, let me tell you. But that was.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that there's a lot of luck involved in things like this. And I happily tell people that I shouldn't have gone to university because it didn't suit me. I shouldn't have gone. But I just met the right supervisor who was interested in what I was interested in and made me realize that actually, I could do it and I was good enough to do it. And now I want to go and do a PhD. And I genuinely think I'm good at what I'm doing. So it is about luck, but there was a lot of pain to get there. And I love what I'm doing now. Would I go to university if it was if I was going to go again? I don't know. And so I think these things are risks, and luck is always involved.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of luck and risks, what can students expect in the next couple of days?
Stress, because you've got the angst leading up to results, and then you've got the potential RSD of opening them and them not being right. And at that point, you might determine that I want to find a university. I want to go to university. You've lost out on your insurance. You've lost out on your firm. And you're not going to university, so you have to then go and find them and choose them, and it's a lot of hours on the telephone with the university admissions officers, talking to them, working out if they've got places. And I remember when I was doing it the first time, when I realized I couldn't do it, was I was talking to admissions officers, and they were saying, "Well, we can't do politics, but we could give you philosophy." And you think oh, okay, interesting, that might be interesting. And if you say yes, and then all of a sudden you're going to a university to go and do something that you weren't sure, you've never done before, you might get lucky. You've taken the risk, and hey, you're going to be the next. I was going to think for a philosopher then, but I'm not going to risk it. Next, major thinker. But in reality, that's a huge risk, and you're speaking to so many different universities that offer so many different things. You have to know what you want to do. So my key advice would be to write down what you want from the next 3 years of your life. So, and that's everything. That's personal life, that's study. You want to go and do history, find history. And then roughly stuff around history that interests you. And then, do you want to be at a campus? Do you want to be in a city? Do you want to be up north, Midlands, in the south? Do you want to be close to family? Do you want to be close to friends? And once you've got that list, don't stray from it, because if you stray from it, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Because when you get there and it's not as good as you thought university was going to be, the first thing you're going to do is say, why am I so silly? Why did I not do what I wanted to do? And you'll pin that on yourself. You'll call yourself a failure for going to the wrong university, which is, it's silly because you're on the end of a phone with someone who's going to take 10 grand off you for their business, because that's unfortunately what universities are. For that year, they want your fees and they're going to do everything they can to get you. Say you've missed out on Bristol because you love like cycling or climbing or hiking. You miss out on Bristol and you're speaking to another university and it's like a really good university, say it's York, and they're saying like, you missed out on Bristol, but you can come to us. And you think, oh, but it's not great for like what I'm into. So you speak to Sheffield University and they say, no, sorry, we can't offer you a place. Actually, maybe you'd be really happy going to Sheffield Hallam, which is a less good university. Your family might not like it that much, but it offers the course you want and it offers you somewhere in the country, where you can do all your personal exploits and things. And it's making that decision, not being led to go down to like a prestigious university or doing something which isn't right for you. You've got to follow your dreams. The first university I went to isn't prestigious, but I loved it and it was the best year of my life. And I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't moved. But also, I kind of wish I hadn't moved because I loved it. It was amazing. And I think it's not letting yourself get led by everything which is going to be happening, which is talking to people who are selling you a product, a very expensive product that they know you're not paying for because you're getting a loan. So it's a very easy decision to make because you're not taking 10 grand out of, grandma's cookie jar and giving it to them. You're simply signing a couple of forms and someone else pays them, but then you have to pay that debt back eventually. So you have to make the right decision.
Yeah, that's what you've said when you said eventually as well, because ADHD is again that time blindness now versus not now. Well, that debt, it's not now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so we don't feel it, and we don't, and so the decisions, like Seb was saying, that we make, you're not taking that into consideration. You're not kind of slowing down, knowing what's at stake. It's that pressure again, fear of missing out, definitely being one of them. So yeah, Seb is right on when he talks about being really clear about your agenda, right? Like, what is it that you want, having that in front of you, or at the very least, your non-negotiables. These are things, at a minimum baseline, I know that I need to have in order to be happy and to be actually able to succeed at university. So just identifying, we do a lot of that in coaching actually, in order to help set up our students for success. Yeah, Eleni, was there anything you wanted to add there?
Yes, I think Seb sort of not only offering his own perspective, but sort of touching on the benefit of being able to look at his experiences through this ADHD lens. And now we can sort of identify the points along the process that maybe were a bit challenging because he didn't have the right depth of knowledge or sort of experience to know how to prepare. But I think you've given us some really specific, good, sound advice that our students can remember. Most importantly, just don't negotiate on what's important to you and have that written somewhere that you can refer to and keep yourself accountable. And that's another thing we do quite a bit in coaching as well. That accountability to remain authentic can be challenged, but having that right sort of insight in front of you, it can be huge.
I think so, because I think if you are dead set on what you want, if then that goes wrong, it's no one's fault. It just wasn't meant to be. But if you let yourself get led by other people, if you let yourself get led by your parents and you go to the wrong place and it goes wrong, all of a sudden you have a problem with your parents, which then means you're a people pleaser and you don't want to bring it up with them, which means you don't have a problem with you, because surely you should be able to fit into this good university that everyone else is fitting into. And it's not your parents' fault, it's your fault. All of a sudden you're spiraling. And so you need to make sure that if it goes wrong, there's no one to blame. And that maybe you can't blame yourself because it's simply not meant to be, and you move on. And I think that's something that I experienced a lot, was if other people get involved, it was likely to impact in me blaming myself for something happening. Whereas if I just commit to what I want, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. And I can move on to the next challenge and make sure that you know what you're doing.
Yeah. That's really helpful. So yeah, to recap, it's about getting clear, about what you want, your agenda, keeping that in sight and in mind at all times, staying in your own lane, which is what Seb was referring to, I think. And and just embracing kind of failure and having a bit of faith, I guess, in terms of, if you are clear and you're kind of staying that path, and if it doesn't work out, ADHDs are a very innovative, creative bunch, right? And we're very good at creating opportunities where there are none as well, right? That's one of our massive strengths. And no doubt, when left with no choice, ADHDs tend to then step up. And not saying that we create situations of failure, but, on the bright side, probably no other kind of neurodiverse person other than an ADHD is kind of the one that usually is best in a crisis, right? So you got your ADHD to fall back onto.
Indeed.
Any last words, guys? Anything else that you want to kind of say before we go?
Good luck with your results. You likely have a rough idea of how well it's gone. And if it's not gone wrong, it genuinely doesn't matter, because it's rubbish at the time, but it might not even be that long until it starts paying dividends, because you learn, you move on, and opportunities arise, and the likelihood is you'll end up going to university, which is brilliant, and you'll come out of your shell and it'd be amazing. But it's not the end of the world if it all goes to pot. It took me 5 years to get my undergrad, but now I'm doing a really good master's and going on to do a PhD. So no matter if you want to go into academia, you'll make it work. If you want to go and do anything else, you'll make it work. That's the beauty of ADHD.
And what most importantly, Seb, did you have fun along the way?
It was tough, but I had fun.
Yeah, fun
Learning about
moments,
myself is fun.
saying. Yeah, learning. But that's what we're here for, right? Life is short. Life's short. It's all about that journey and doing the things, particularly if you've got ADHD, we've got interest-based nervous systems, doing the things that fill us with joy, right? There's no bigger igniter really than that. So yes, good luck. We are having another webinar on Results Day. So do join us on Results Day to where we will, it's going to be a space where you can kind of share. We'll have a chat function as well. And together we're better, definitely. And shame dies when stories are shared. We're all about, kind of sharing these things. It makes it easier. So good luck. We wish you all the best and hope to see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
See you soon.